sitting out here with stacks of money doing my own online business. You don't have to work at all, stay at home, and you can make fat racks of cash by doing these 3 simple steps.
Sitting outside with my brand new car that my online business just paid for. I paid for this sucker while sitting in my PJs at home. You too can buy it on Shutterstock for $12.95.
How's it going, guys? It's your boys here with Monarch for another Monarch Minute, where they always go over a minute. Here to talk to you guys about how we work remote.
So as you guys I'm sure have seen on all forms of digital, you get these influencers, quote unquote, wannabe influencers that say, I'm gonna scale your business from 0 to $1 billion in a year, and this is how you're gonna do it. Just follow my 10-step guide and my ebook and download my courses and you too can become a millionaire. Well, guess what, guys? That is complete BS.
But that being said, there are a lot of ways where you can work remotely. You hear a lot of people, like you said, being able to work from your house and do everything and above to make all sorts of kind of money. And we're here to tell you kind of how we've done it and work remotely, being that most of our clients are remote, and to point out some things that it is not as easy as you think, and if anything, it's actually quite a bit harder.
For instance, communication is something that we struggle with day to day. Hey Joe, can I get that password?
Yeah, it's
awesome, thank you, I got that. All right, well, the story is much different when you're dealing with clients either across the US or even across seas. In fact, you oftentimes send an email asking for something, whether it's a password, login information, a link, whatever it may be, and it can be hours before you get a response. And not only so, then you have to follow back up with the client.
You finally end up getting the one password you asked for. Another example you might not think about is when you're working remote, a lot of times they're in different time zones, which all sounds hunky-dory until you're having to wake up at 4 a.m. for a call to get that password we talked about earlier.
Example 3, if you're working with people remotely, they might have a complete different perspective on how to handle day-to-day life and business. For instance, many companies outside of the town in which you're at have big ethnicity differences, big religious differences, and quite frankly, just day-to-day life differences.
So finally, another problem that comes from working remotely is what you see with a lot of influencers out there and a lot of people online. They end up trying to sell the sizzle rather than the actual product or service they're delivering. It's something that we could take advantage of if we wanted to in website development, because if you never actually see somebody and never actually directly talk to them, you have a much easier time not being transparent. That being said, there are a lot of things you can do to help make working remotely effective.
Effective communication?
Huge, huge, huge for working with people remotely, and that's why it becomes actually harder, is because you have to communicate effectively and over-communicate, over-communicate, over-communicate. One of the biggest problems you can find yourself running into is, like we said before, you're talking to people, you miss some points that you thought that they needed to make, and at the end of the day, people end up confused and people end up upset.
And I would say, last but not least, communication, especially in a distant relationship, oftentimes becomes more important than the actual service being provided. Feeling a level of comfort with whoever you're working for is priority over everything. So,
in addition to communication, step number 2, make sure you have a process, setup, and precedence. The worst thing you can do is go into a relationship with someone halfway around the world and not be on the same page for how communication will actually take place. So that's why with everybody to work with, you have to have set contracts in place, set meeting times, set times for how long each meeting is going to be, and make sure you know what you're going to be reporting on and how success will be measured. Finally, another huge perk of working remotely is that you do sometimes have a little bit more free time with your schedule. Not to the point that these influencers talk about being able to ride around in their Lambo all day and not work, but if there's a great powder day, we might be able to schedule our day to where we can go skiing, take a phone call when we're on top of the mountain. If we want to do a road trip to a business conference in the coast and we want to get a surf trip in, we're able to do that and work on the road, work at coffee shops and do things like that. So all that being said, no, we're not driving around in Lambos, making millions, not doing any work, but it does free up our schedule enough to be able to plan around our lives that we like to think is pretty active.
So all in all, working remotely does come with its challenges. However, if you communicate effectively, plan out your process, and be transparent, you too can have a job where you work remotely.
So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.